You should know that not only do I agree with you, and not only am I going to be operating from this perspective from this point forward, you have also solved like half of the arguments that I have with my real life book club. Not only do I think that you are onto something, I think that you are the bringer of world peace. Because I mean this in not in without any exaggeration. I think that this solves every inconsistency problem that I have with this love triangle and how it is presented in the lore at current. And I'll even take it a step further and say that this theory solves the problems and the inconsistencies about the friendship of everyone in the Night Court. So I think that the cracks in the Cassian, Morrigan, Azriel, Eris situation begin at the end of Akasif. Well, they don't begin at the end of Akasif, but I think that that is a logical conundrum that we are meant to look at because Cassian specifically calls attention to it. He says, hey, Eris, like, you're a good dude. Like, you let yourself get tortured and you didn't give us up. And you did all this stuff, but you still left Morrigan in the woods. Like, I can't put those thoughts together that you are the guy who would get yourself tortured for us and still not give us up, but also be the guy who left Morrigan in the woods to be horrifically abused like that. And if I remember correctly, like, Eris doesn't answer. And Cassian says something like, I think that you're a good male, even if you personally don't think that you're a good male, or like if you don't even believe it, or if you don't see that in yourself, I do. And at first, I thought that this logical inconsistency was so obvious that I started immediately speculating, like, what if Eris is Mor's mate, but Eris is a trans woman? Because that's the only way that Eris and Mor being mates makes sense to me, is that Eris has to be secretly a woman. That being said, I don't think that anymore. I wasn't able to, like, fully make that logical leap, especially because of the way that gay people are handled in the story. God bless this man, because Rhysand has a boyfriend, or he has like a male consort, but like from what I understand, they're not mates. So either their mate bond hasn't popped yet, or gay people can't be mated. And at that point I have to wonder again, is the cauldron homophobic? But it would explain why Morrigan, after 500 years, the first person that she comes out to is Feyre, the new person. And Eris doesn't confirm or deny that he left her in the woods. I think, like, in that conversation with Cassian, he's always been like, I think he says something in Akawar, like, I have a lot of regrets in life, and the way that the Morrigan thing was handled was one of them. But he never says specifically, yeah, I did that. He doesn't own that action. Not even in front of Baron or in front of the other High Lords does he own this action. And from what I understand, this is relatively common knowledge. Like, this is Fey Bochinche. Like, everybody knows this. So it would stand to reason that the idea that we have, the premise of Morrigan being left in the woods and being brutalized by the Autumn Court and all that stuff, the guy who left her in the woods wasn't Eris. It was Azriel. It would also explain Azriel's cripplingly low self-worth and how the way that he speaks about how, like, he can't even touch Elaine without sullying her. But this would give Azriel a good arc in an Elaine book about him overcoming his self-worth issues and understanding that he was being used as a pawn in the Morrigan situation, and that doesn't mean that he's not deserving of happiness or anything like that. It would also explain a huge plot hole around the Night Court in that Morrigan, you're telling me Morrigan is so uncomfortable with herself and her sexuality and all of these people that she's been with for the last 500 years that she only came out to Feyre? Maybe it's because Sarah J. Maas is like a straight woman, but I don't think she realizes how badly this makes the Night Court look. But let's say she did feel uncomfortable. You're telling me that she didn't feel like she could go to Rhysand and be like, hey, like, your blue siphon buddy is icking me out. Say something to him. Also, as of now, we have no real barometer as to how bad Rhysand's family was, or Rhysand's father was. We know that Baron is shitty because Baron tortured Eris and he tortured Lucian. He had Lucian's, like, lower Fey girlfriend killed. He tortured Eris and Akasith. And then Tamlin's father is said to be worse than that. And if Rhysand's father is worse than that, we do need like a level of, this is the barometer of craziness that we got. So it makes sense that Rhysand's father is even worse, because not only did he pin that horrible act on Eris, who was young and who was young at the time, I think younger than Morrigan if the calendar is to be believed. But to make matters worse, he made Azriel do it. And Azriel, out of the 3 Bat Boys that we have, Azriel was definitely the one who had been through the most in his short time. And we do get some portions of ACOTAR where Rhysand says, like, he's looking for Cassian in the bodies in the prologue of ACOTAR, but he knows that Azriel isn't going to be there because Azriel is kept close by his father. Meaning that Azriel is close by to Rhysand's father in the event that he needs to pin something on the Autumn Court and really fuck up their lives and put Azriel in a position where he has to keep secrets from the rest of the Night Court. And Rhysand, not being a person who mind rapes his friends, would never know this. So he would glean the situation as best as he could and be like, oh, Azriel's in love with Morrigan and it's an issue and they got to deal with it. And Cassian is also operating under this assumption because Cassian doesn't know that Azriel's the one who left Morrigan in the woods, and he doesn't know because Eris doesn't tell him, and Azriel's certainly not going to tell him. This theory would also solve the issues that that my book club in particular, but like anti-Azriel people would have with Azriel's character. Because based on the information that we have, he's been simping over Mor for 500 years and he can't take a hint. So like I could see how that would make people feel a type of way about him. And even if the actual events of the story don't necessarily line up with Azriel simping over Mor, as the lore would say. Making it not about Azriel's past or current love for Morrigan and more about his crippling guilt about being made to do that horrible thing to Morrigan, and Morrigan knows about it and Eris knows about it, and they're all forced to keep this horrific secret, and they all have to take on this emotional labor to conceal the truth of that day. It would be incredibly compelling and tragic, and it would actually make, regardless of whether he ends up with Elaine or with Gwyneth, this would change everything for Azriel, and it would make the icky, like the presumably icky parts of his personality a lot more easy to swallow. All this to say, like, Sarah, listen to your fans. Sometimes the fans get it right, and if this isn't the official explanation as to the love triangle, as to Eris leaving Morrigan in the woods, as to why Morrigan never came out to the Night Court, I would love to hear what the actual explanation is and how that could be better than this one detail that wraps up everything. Excellent theory. Headcanon and possibly canon accepted.